Welcome, Akashic family. I am so happy to be with all of you today. I'm just taking in everyone here. I see so many familiar faces. I feel like most of you here have taken my Akashic training, which is, yeah, I think about 80% of you here. So that's amazing. Welcome. I'm happy to see you. And I see some new faces too. Hmm. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about this 3-part series. I never plan anything, but every session is going to be a combination of either Akashic transmission with an energetic transmission or a personal share or Q&A. And my intention with sharing this series with all of you is to support us in cultivating our spiritual gifts, recognizing our spiritual gifts, and feeling empowered and aligned with sharing them. And I feel like that's going to mean something radically different for everybody here. Each and every one of us has so much inherent divine value to who and how it is we naturally are. Our value, our gifts are not necessarily something that we have to seek or find or even strive for. It's inherent in who we are. And I feel like we've created this society where in many ways we're guided away from who and how we naturally are, even though that's the real gift. And we're conditioned to be a certain way, to show up a certain way. I feel like the educational systems do this, and they glorify one way of being. They say, this is the route to success. This is how you should be. This is the standard. And it can have us believe that we're not enough, that who and how we naturally are is not our gift to life. But that is the true gift. And our spiritual gifts, our capacity to love one another, to serve one another, to access the Akashic records, to bring forth really valuable, transformative psychic insight, that is also inherent to our being. And we've been conditioned to believe that this is something that is supernatural. They're gifts for a select few. Yet the reality is that they are supernatural, meaning they are inherent to who we are, and they are our birthright. And I don't feel that the cultivation of our spiritual gifts is really about seeking something that we don't already have. For me, it's more about peeling away the layers that have conditioned us to believe we are not already gifted, that have us believe that we don't already have this immensely valuable treasure chest within of so many precious jewels and gems that can and will change the world. It's already here. You don't have to seek it. You don't have to try. It's already here. So one aspect of this series is going to be to reconnect with the gifts that already are. And some of these gifts you may have never known or experienced in such a fully expressed way ever before in your life. simply because our societal structures, our culture, the way that humanity is and relates to each other does not necessarily support the blossoming, the expression of these gifts. Yet they're there, they're yours, the way that you are. Each and every one of us was divinely designed in alignment with the perfection of all that is. And there is a reason that we are the way that we are. Our unique perspectives, our unique way of loving, the way in which we naturally feel inspired to serve and to share. All of this is exactly how it is meant to be. You were divinely designed. So, invitation in this moment to release any and all conditioning that may be limiting you in any way from perceiving and receiving the value of who and how you naturally are. You are a gift unto itself. You are divinely designed. Trust your design. Trust your natural expression. Trust the way in which you feel inspired to serve and to share. That's it. That is your gift. And your full expression, your service, your sharing opens up the energetic flow between you and life. As you give, as you share, as you express more of you in service to all of humanity, to all of life, you'll find that you become one with this stream of then receiving all of life's gifts. And life's gifts come in so many different forms. They come in us feeling fulfilled, feeling inspired, having energy and vitality. Because when we're sharing our gifts, it's amazing how our biochemistry, our bodies will reorient itself to give us the energy to share. When there's something to show up for, we'll show up. And our bodies will create what is necessary to show up. We also receive the abundance, prosperity. Because money is really just energy. And when we provide our service, when we give a gift that is so valuable, it's natural. For that flow to return to us. So I would love to invite all of you right now to join me in collectively setting the foundation for our time together in this series. You're welcome to drop into a meditative position, perhaps close your eyes. Find yourself in a completely undisturbed state where you can open to receive your presence. And be available to receive the words, the insights, the energy that is transmitted here today. Trusting that if you are here, you are meant to be here. And it's because there are gifts here for you. And giving yourself permission in this moment to allow this transmission to transform you in a way that is for your highest good and the highest good of all. Knowing that what has been, in terms of your relationship to sharing your gifts can change. Allowing yourself to be available for a miracle, to release these ways of relating to yourself, to your natural expression, your sharing and your service. Releasing any ways that do not serve you. And allowing yourself in this moment to find center deep within you where you are perceiving and receiving the value of who you are, of how you are. And you are receiving and experiencing your love for life, your love for humanity. Because the more that we connect with this feeling of love for life, the more inspired we're going to be to give. If we mistrust life, if we're holding resentment towards life, if we hate humanity, we're naturally not going to want to share. We don't want to give and share with people who we hate and resent and judge. So if it feels aligned with you, set the intention to open your heart to the love that you have for life. Imagining yourself opening up this generous flow of your love to all of life. Honoring, remembering how much it is that you have to give. Honoring the value of all that you are, all that you have to give. And imagining yourself, envisioning yourself allowing this love, you're giving, you're sharing, you're expressing, to flow freely through you. It is natural at times for fear, for doubt, hesitation, procrastination to arise when it comes to expressing, sharing, serving, creating. Know that you do not need to eradicate these feelings. Give yourself permission in this moment to embrace, to hold hands with all of these feelings, all of these experiences, and walk forward with them. any fear, any expression of resistance. It doesn't need to hold you back. You can walk with it, you can share with it. And oftentimes, this is the only thing that will alleviate the fear. And together, I'd love to set the context for our time together. Allowing the foundation of our time together to be trusting, valuing who and how it is we naturally are, trusting the journey, the process of the cultivation and creation and offering of our spiritual gifts. Reclaiming our energy from any thoughts we may have been believing relevant to us and us being a natural gift to life. Whether it's about, I'm not good enough, I need to be more. Bringing home all of that energy to the center of your being, trusting in the value of you, in the divine perfection of you. Acknowledging that the sharing of your spiritual gifts is not found in one expression, in one formal thing that you do. It's in everything that you do. It's in the consciousness that you are anchoring on behalf of all of humanity, the entirety of the earth and beyond. It is in the smile that you offer a stranger. It's in how you lead yourself through emotional anguish. It's in how you serve your friends, your family, even your own body by nourishing, caring for the cells, the entirety of your body. The sharing of your spiritual gifts is in everything that you do. It's in every breath that you take. It's inherent to who and how you are. Mm. So, with this context, this foundation for our time together, in your mind and your heart, Ground your presence into your body. Perhaps feel your feet. Feel your body, experience your breath. And in your own time, you can open your eyes and return to the group. I'm going to begin sharing stream of consciousness, whatever feels relevant specifically to this group before me, to all of you. If questions arise for you, I would love to invite you to, you can either use the raise your hand option on Zoom if you want to share through speaking your question, or you can type your question into the chat box. Whatever you prefer. When it comes to sharing our spiritual gifts, I feel like so many of us are so close to who it is that we are. It's like we just are who we are. And we don't necessarily see ourselves. We tend to take for granted who and how we are. Like if we're highly intuitive and sensitive, we may have a tendency to project that, oh, many other people are also highly intuitive and sensitive. Not really recognizing that that is actually an immense gift and finding ways to express that in service to humanity is of tremendous benefit to all. So I'd love to invite all of you to really practice seeing the uniqueness of you and recognizing that the people around you aren't carrying the codes that you carry, the wisdom that you carry. Your life experience is yours. It is so unique to you, and you've gleaned such a unique perspective, so much wisdom, so many gems to share. We also have a tendency to judge our wisdom, to judge what it is that we're holding within, thinking that it's not extravagant enough, it's not epic enough, it's not big enough to share. Trust that if it's flowing through you, there's a reason. It's wanting to be shared. Everything that exists to serve in some way. So if you have a desire to share and serve, become really aware of that part of you that may stop you. This is weird. People aren't going to get it. No, this isn't good enough. Become aware of that part of you and then begin to allow yourself to share anyway and play around with that. Because oftentimes these thoughts perpetuate themselves. We'll have like the inkling to share something, to create something, to express in some way, and then we'll judge, we'll stop ourselves, and we inadvertently perpetuate and give energy to that belief of, oh, what flows through me is not good enough. What flows through me is actually not meant to be shared. It's not meant to be expressed. It's not meant to be created. And it becomes a self-fulfilling cycle and loop. So we've got to break that cycle. And it can be really challenging the first time. And little by little, it gets easier and easier and easier. Just let yourself share and know that when you share, even though there's always not only even the risk and the possibility, but almost like this is going to happen, of being judged, of being misunderstood, of triggering someone, that's okay. That's part of the service of our sharing. As you step into more expanded expressions of who you are, people are going to love you. They're going to understand you, get you, and people are going to fear you and judge you and completely misunderstand you and project all sorts of things onto you. And that's okay. That is part of the service. The intention is not to be liked or to be received any which way. The intention is to set your creative impulses free, to set your expression free, to know, experience more of yourself by revealing and sharing more of yourself. That's what it's all about. And then you trust that that sharing, that expression has the impacts that it is meant to have. As long as it is coming from the heart, from the truth of you, from your desire to love. That's all that you have to concern yourself. Like, where is this impulse to share coming from? I'm reading the chat. Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Ryan. Wow, my solar plexus both relaxed and empowered. Yes. Do you feel that there's a difference between holding on to certain offerings because we feel it is still in progress, working itself through us, versus delaying out of fear and perfectionism? Yes and no. I feel like it's all on a spectrum. And when it comes to sharing gifts, like, for example, holding space for events or working with clients one-on-one in these really deep transformational ways, we need to first embody what it is that we are wanting to transmit in our sharing to some degree. And everything that comes through us is also for us. So we're never going to share as any sort of perfect and ready version of ourselves, because that's never going to happen. We share as the human. We share as the human that is still, in a sense, under construction, that is still growing, that is still learning, that is deeply imperfect. We always share from there because there's no other version of us that will ever be. We are constantly evolving. We are constantly growing. Our perspective is constantly expanding. So we've got to be okay with what it is that we have now. That's got to be enough for now. And we trust that the people that receive it, it serves them for where they're at. And it doesn't need to be perfect. And if there's fear around sharing, sometimes that fear can be a protection in a sense. Because it may mean that you're not ready to share in the way that your mind, your ego is perhaps pressuring you to share. Yet you're always ready to share in the ways that are aligned with you. And it doesn't have to be any sort of formal offering that your ego, your mind comes up with. It can just be like lending a listening ear to the old man that sits next to you on your flight and perceiving him through the eyes of love. Or it can just be walking through a crowd, emitting so much love to all. Your sharing comes in an infinite number of forms, and you're always ready to share something. And if there's fear, perfectionism around one specific way in which you want to share, then I invite you to create a dialogue with that fear and get to understand it and see if it is a resistance that is sincerely aligned and it's actually you trying to rush your blooming versus procrastination. Something that I see often with the cultivation and the sharing of our spiritual gifts is like people will have this judgment of themselves and their process and their timing. And the way that I've seen it in Akashic record readings with people is that it's like looking at a flower and yelling at it to bloom faster. Like, why didn't you bloom today? Bloom faster. Come on, bloom, bloom. Like, you would never do that because you know that the flower it blooms in divine time. It has its natural process. It cannot bloom prematurely. Everything needs to be in place. It needs to be ready to bloom. And then when it does bloom, it's like this ecstatic opening, this ecstatic expression of itself. Like I imagine that is the greatest joy for a flower to bloom, to open to its radiance, to its brilliance, to its beauty. And the blooming of a flower serves not only like the joy, the expression of the flower, but also it serves the birds and the bees, right? There's nectar, there's pollen in the flower. The flower may have medicinal properties. Right now I'm drinking flower tea, rose tea. It has a beautiful fragrance. It serves in so many different ways. Yet its blooming cannot be rushed. And every single part of your process is so valuable. Before I began sharing in these more formal containers like I am now, I underwent so much. I had a spiritual awakening when I was 17. It was a massive psychic opening. And I shared with people, I shared with my therapist, was sent to a psychiatrist. I was put on pharmaceutical drugs. And in many ways, that may look like the closing of the spiritual gifts or procrastination or delay or something that shouldn't have occurred. But that is such an integral part of my story and my service. I've been through drug addiction. I've been in an abusive relationship. I've had a severe eating disorder for a decade. All of these things may look like procrastination to the sharing of your gifts, like a delay, like, a speed bump that shouldn't be there. But as I hold space for people now, in the way that I hold space for people now, I recognize how important it was for me to dive into the depths of human darkness. I mean, it gets dark. I was addicted to opiates, so it gets dark in there, like being in that environment. And that gave me a firsthand personal experience that I could never, I just could not be who and how I am in terms of my expression and my sharing and my holding of people without that experience, because I get the dark. I've been there. I've healed childhood traumas from my child. Yeah, I've healed like childhood traumas. I've been through all of it. And sometimes it's frustrating, like, oh, why did I have such a traumatized experience? Why I ended up a drug addict in an abusive relationship with a severe eating disorder? Developed autoimmune disease. Like, why? Like, life, why would you do that to me? Hindsight is 2020. Now, when I'm holding people and holding these containers, I get it. I'm like, wow, those experiences were integral to who it is that I was becoming. They were so important for me to learn how to hold people and hold them in their experiences and really get it and embody the learning that is required when you lift yourself out of like opiate addiction, when you get out of an abusive relationship, when you heal a severe eating disorder, when you heal autoimmune disease. All of these things helps me learn in ways that I could have never learned in a book or learned through someone else. Like I had to live it myself. So know that your entire story, everything that you move through, is part of the cultivation of your gift, your service to humanity. Nothing can ever stray like that. It's not like I always thought when I had, when I was crippled in bed with autoimmune disease, I always thought, oh, I need to heal from this as quickly as possible so that I can start sharing my gifts. Realizing that those days in bed of healing, those were my gifts on those days. That was my gift. And don't underestimate the impact that your consciousness has on the totality of humanity, of all. At the end of the day, we are all one. It is one consciousness, one intelligence that flows through all, and it's all connected. So when we anchor in a new way of being, this new way of being is anchored into the collective human mind. So sometimes our gift is our own internal process. Our simple meditation, our moving through the healing of some sort of struggle. When we do that, we break patterns. We loosen the grip that these challenges and traumas have on the collective human mind. All of your experiences are valuable. Your gift is being shared in it all. Thank you for that question, Jonathan. What would you suggest if nothing seems to be flowing? I feel like something is always flowing. It's just not always what the mind or the ego wants to be flowing. And sometimes what's flowing is, oh, wow, my body needs some movement. I'm going to go for a jog outside. And that is our gift in that moment. It's a gift to our body. Our body is comprised of these trillions of tiny little cells. Each one is an individuated consciousness. In our service to life, it's not just to other humans, it's to the earth, it's to our own body. It's to all the spirits, it's for different aspects of people, it's for everything and everyone. So if nothing is flowing the way that we think it should be flowing or want it to be flowing, it's time to really step back and open to, okay, what is actually flowing? And oftentimes what opens the flow is when we step in to share and to serve in the way that is naturally flowing in that moment. So our mind may be like, oh, I want to share. I want something to flow so that I can share on social media right now. But really, you're visiting your sister and your little 2-year-old niece is right there. And what's actually flowing is being in service to her in that moment, playing with her, being present with her, bringing her love, allowing yourself to be served by her. And your gift is finding expression in that moment in that unique way. And then as you really flow with that, then you'll find that it opens you up in new ways. But like the flow, when it comes to the sharing of your spiritual gifts, you can't just magically open it when you're in front of a client or when you're in front of a group of people that are listening to you, wanting to receive from you. It's flowing constantly. We work on that flow constantly. And the number one person we work on that flow with is with ourselves. If you want to be working with clients, you learn first how to hold yourself, how to lead yourself when your limiting beliefs arise, how to lead and hold yourself when emotional anguish comes up, when you want to engage in some pattern, some behavior that you know is not serving your highest. So it starts with you. And that foundation is what then has you become ready to share with others. But you can't rush past that foundation, that service that you have initially to yourself. And you may think it's only for you, but it's actually for everybody because of the way in which we are all so connected. Thank you, Jewel, for your comment. Yeah, and Ryan says, but I know there's something more. What I get when I ask is, I know I am in an interim and to be patient. Every part of the process is valuable. Oftentimes we undergo transformations before it is that we begin sharing. And if you look at the transformation of the caterpillar into the butterfly, it literally dissolves into an amorphous goop where nothing makes sense. It becomes this like nonsensical mess. That's what happens to the caterpillar before it emerges as the butterfly. So if things aren't making sense to you, maybe there are shifts occurring within your own consciousness. There was this one year where I decided to spend the summer in Crete. It was very much like my guides directing me, guiding me. And when I got to Crete, I had an idea of what it would be like. But what ended up happening was I was feeling really called to cocoon. I was undergoing a lot of emotional, like just a lot of emotions coming up. And I felt like things weren't making sense. Like I kind of felt like I was losing my mind a bit. I was like, what is going on? And I spent a few weeks in that state. And at moments, I judged that something was wrong, that this was bad. This was not the experience I expected to have. And as I emerged from that time, I went swimming one day in the ocean, met a friend. He invited me to spend time with him and some other friends on the beach, like in the coming days. When I got there, he was telling his friends what I do. And as a joke, one of them suggested, there were about 5 of them, one of them suggested that I guess their birthdays. What? Okay, I decided to play around with it. 4 out of 5 people, I guessed their birthdays right. And the 5th guy, I knew his birthday. He was the last one. I heard his birthday, but I doubted it because it reminded me of my birthday. So I like started seeking and doubting. And then I got the month right, but the day wrong. But I had actually heard what the actual day was. And I realized in that moment, whoa, when I was like in bed, kind of feeling like I was losing my mind or like hiking out in nature, I actually was shifting. There was something occurring that really anchored in my psychic ability. Like to guess 4 people's birthdays, that's not something that I think I could have done before that period of time. So, what I've learned over time is when my mind is changing how it interfaces with reality, when it is opening in its telepathic capacity, it can sometimes feel like I'm losing my mind because I'm losing my mind as it is. So if you ever have experiences like that, trust. It's part of the process and you never know what's going to come through the other side. Hmm. Yeah, and Mayu says it's like a baby. Baby needs to be in the mom's stomach 9 months. We're not going to take the baby out, even if the mom wants to meet the baby so badly. Exactly. Like we really are in wombs of our own creation, of our own spiritual gifts. So Millie asks, what is the best way to allow a line with our highest expression as we move through the day? I feel there is no best way. are an infinite number of ways. It can be valuable to tune in throughout the day, really tune into your center, to your heart, to that aspect of you that feels aligned. And then allow ourselves to move from there. Honoring that there are many aspects to us. We have emotions, we have fears, we have parts of us that are addicted to certain patterns. We have parts of us that have very limiting beliefs around ourselves and what's possible for us. I know that I have a part of me that is like, just like an emotional, like can be like, like kind of that type of emotion. I think just because of, past trauma in my life. And when that part of like, kind of comes up, it's very tempting to move forward from that part. And then if I move forward from that part, I'm distracted, I'm spacey, I'm more susceptible to like binge eating or overeating. I may do things that I know are not for my highest good. So know that in those moments when those parts come up, they're very compelling. They're like, okay, act in this way, move forward in this way. But we always have the power to come back, to connect with our heart, with our center, with another part of us, and then move forward in that direction with the part that is like, for me, it's like, like this emotional, like freak out kind of thing. I can move forward with the emotional freak out, but in the direction that is guided by my heart, by my center. And the emotional freak out is going to be like, what are you doing? We need to emotionally freak out right now. Like, this is crazy. What are you doing? This isn't right. You can't do this. You don't have the power to do this. You've got to listen to me. Emotional freak out. Do things my way. I'm freaking out. Yet we sincerely always have the power to be like, okay, I hear you. I feel you. I love you. I'm with you. And I'm going to work with you and hold you in a way that may not be what you want, but is actually good for you. So it may be like doing some breath work or doing a workout, even though there's a part of you that's like, what are we doing? We're meant to be freaking out right now. And the more that we practice connecting with that aspect of us that is aligned, that is like truly showing up in service to all other aspects of us, the easier it becomes. And then we become really masterfully self-led. Because each and every one of us has like these parts of us that are in fear, that have so many limiting beliefs about us. And if we let those parts of us run the show, then we're not going to end up heading in the direction of where it is we want to go. And we can't eradicate those parts. They're aspects of us. They're always going to be there. They're part of the human psyche. So instead, we learn how to walk with them. And we become better at being self-led. We choose the part of us that is leading. And we walk with these parts. We accept them. We embrace them. We love them. We do not judge them or resist them, because when you create resistance, you create a fight, a battle. And that fight, that battle gives more energy to the part that you're trying to eradicate. You inadvertently give it more energy to direct and guide you. So that's why we can't resist them. Welcome back. Okay, I see Teresi has her hand up. Would you like to share with us your question?
Hi.
Hey.
Yeah. Hi, Therese. Yeah, thank you.
Therese.
Yeah. So my question also has to do with kind of feeling like I'm blocked from what wants to flow at times. And it's like, it's as if for many years, for years, I've been struggling with this. And it's like, it's almost like I'll get hit by, sometimes it almost feels like lightning, and so much will be flowing through me, so much inspiration. And it is in every way of how I'm being, not just in one specific purpose, although there have like projects that are so resonant with my gifts and what I'm feel I'm here to do have presented themselves to me. And it's like the ways that the energy wants to flow through me, it's like it'll flow and I'll be like, oh my gosh, it's here, I'm unlocked. Now I'm going to plan to do this on next week and this next week. And then it's like, and then like it feels so unpredictable. It's like then I might feel complete 180 the next day. I might feel completely blocked the next week. It feels like these like times when it's flowing, like I go back and forth and it's so disorienting and it's been so difficult. And it's like in 2011, 2012, when I had a deep awakening, it felt like those gifts were flowing through me like almost constantly. And so I'm missing that and I'm wanting that back. And I'm also going through the process over all these years of the things you've said that have really helped me, of like recognizing that it's a process and it does feel like a flower. And when it feels blocked, just going to, well, what does want to flow now? But it's just like, I feel like I'm dying. And I don't know if there's anything else to add here because it relates to some of the things you've already addressed. But for me, it's like a huge unstuckedness will happen and then it'll feel like a huge block. And I'm just like, a part of me wants to say, well, when's it just gonna flow? Because I get these inspirations and then it seems like they aren't actually taking root in the world or in my consciousness in the way that I feel is possible.
Thank you, Therese. That is a question. That's a share that I so deeply resonate with. I feel like that's been my process entirely. Everything that you spoke to, it's like, oh, yeah, that it feels like me speaking. I'm going to take a moment to drop into this share and this question. It feels like we cannot escape the cycles and the seasons of life. And collectively, we need to honor how scary it has been in the past and presently for us to share. We're all holding these imprints to some degree or another of experiences like being burned at the stake, being totally ostracized by your community, which back in the day meant death. To not belong, to be rejected, to not fit in meant death. If you weren't welcomed into the community, you would die. And we've undergone so many, like so much pain, so much threat to our well-being and to our lives because of sharing. So each and every one of us is carrying these imprints in unique ways. Some of us are carrying more, some of us are carrying less. And we can't just bulldoze through these imprints and fears, even if they don't feel rational in this moment. So we really have to have patience and compassion for our resistance, knowing that there's a lot that's being worked through many different layers. And also acknowledging that the ego can often come to these conclusions, like our minds can think like, okay, I'm ready now. This is what I'm going to do. It's like we just want to run ahead of ourselves. Like, I'm ready. I've got it. If you were ready, it would be emerging from you. if you were actually ready, you'd be ready. And there are parts of us that want to rush ourselves, want us to be further ahead than we are. And I feel like those parts of us are the parts that are not yet in full honor and reverence of the value of all of our experiences, of all that we are. And we're overvaluing one aspect of us, one form of expression, and then inadvertently diminishing these other experiences that we go through. And when we do that to ourselves, I feel like we can actually keep ourselves in these cycles because we're holding a judgment towards ourselves and mistrust of our process. In some ways, it's like an energy towards ourselves that doesn't allow us to really rest in our process, surrender to it, and move through it. If we're consistently like, knock, knock, what are you doing? Time to share. You should be doing this. Why aren't you doing this? Like, get out there, do the thing. It's like we're never fully resting in the process and coming into the acceptance of self, the trust in life, the love of self that is actually what we are divinely designed to be sharing at this time. Because there already is so many distorted beliefs on the planet around I should be more, I should do more, you should be more than you are, you're not good enough, you got to be doing, producing, creating, doing, producing, creating. The world doesn't need more of that type of energy, that transmission. So when we're relating to ourselves in that way, when we're moving through that within ourselves, I feel like our spirit on some level blocks us from sharing, because it's like, well, you don't want to share from there, from the foundation of you need to do and be and produce and create more than you naturally are. And that can be one block. And I also feel that we are cyclical beings. And I do trust in our healing because I know that the more that I work through my personal healing, like I was completely blocked for years, but I had the desire so strongly. But as I move through, the blocks are less and less and less. And even when I feel at my most blocked of blocked, I can still see a client and it can be brilliant. Where once upon a time I had to cancel. And the times of opening and the times of expression are longer and longer and longer, and they're bigger. Yet the seasons still come, the cycles still come. And especially as women, like I know that hormonally, we are designed at times to be more out there, to be expressing ourselves, like giving all of our energy. And then times when we are hormonally, like biochemistry, more designed to go internal, to rest. So these cycles will always be a part of it. They'll always be there. Even the greatest creators I know, that I like work with, they still have their cycles of like, why am I blocked? What's going on? So the better that we relate to these times of being blocked, I feel like the less we'll actually experience them. They have a gift for us, and anything that we resist, we cannot receive. So as we relinquish our resistance to the time of being blocked and release these expectations that we have on ourselves, I will feel good about you if you're sharing. I will feel good about life if I'm sharing. It's like release those conditions for loving ourselves, accepting ourselves, being okay with ourselves, valuing ourselves. That will allow us to move through the process, which is necessary, because if it wasn't necessary, it wouldn't be arising. Life is so specific. It is brilliant. It is infinitely more brilliant than our minds could possibly comprehend. So if it's giving you an experience, it's because that experience is necessary. And the more that we can undergo the necessary experience by releasing our resistance to it and instead surrendering to it, the more quickly we can open back up. Therese, do you feel like that answers aspects of your share and your question?
Yeah, definitely. It does. It does. Thank you. There's that part of me that's like, I'm so sick of doing that process. It's what I've been working on this whole time. But you're right. If it's still here, it needs to be. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I had a session once with a mentor when I was in a time of really not wanting to share, show up, or do anything. And she recommended that I, for an entire month, just commit to following my highest excitement. That's it. And I was in Costa Rica, and my highest excitement was I'm going to go to the beach. I'm going to go dance. I'm going to go drive around aimlessly. And it totally lifted my frequency out of this almost self-imposed punishment for not sharing, for not showing up for my dharma, for my work. And it was fascinating to discover the way in which, because I wasn't doing what my mind told me I should be doing, I was like unconsciously, in a sense, punishing myself and lowering my own frequency and not giving myself the most ecstatic experience of life. And when I opened to my highest excitement was not sharing anything. It was doing totally different things. But I started living this experience of like so much bliss and like, yay. And for many of us, I feel like that's also a foundation to what it is that we're wanting to share. We're not really wanting to put out the energies of like the self-imposed punishment or any of that. So when we release that and come into the alignment and flow, it can open us up to then feel more ready to share.
Yeah, I've definitely had that experience too. And then I get scared of like, it's never gonna. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, the fear, it's never gonna. It's like, well, maybe it doesn't have to. Yeah, working through all the layers of mind. Thank you, Therese. I feel like that was such a good question, relevant to us all in some degree or another.
Thank you.
Reading this. Comment from Rochelle. For the past 8 months, I have been monetizing my spiritual gifts by coaching and offering Akashic record readings, but I quickly became burnt out to the point where I have completely put my business on hold. What insight can you provide on holding the integrity and joy of sharing your spiritual gifts when it is your primary source of income? Making it work for you. Finding like the appropriate amounts to charge and creating the aligned income streams that work for you and never lead to you needing to do the thing. And instead feeling like you get to do the thing and you're doing it to the amount that supports you in receiving more energy. Like the sharing of our spiritual gifts ultimately can support us in having more energy. Like if I have 2 clients a day, that's amazing. I have more energy from that. As soon as I get into like 5 clients a day, it starts to drain and deplete me. So that's a really big sign. Like if I'm drained or depleted, I have given too much. And how can I restructure my life so that I don't have to give so much, knowing that many of us are carrying these limiting beliefs that have been so imposed on us that we need to be working 8-hour days, 9-hour days, 10-hour days, that we need to be working more to earn more, that we need to work hard to make a living, that we need to work for money. Work, like just the word work, it feels like draining, it feels depleting, it feels like just the giving of all of my energy. And know that this is conditioning and it's not true. And the thing about our conditioning is it formulates our beliefs. Our beliefs determine how we behave and what we will allow to become true in our lives. So it's a cycle. We believe we need to deplete ourselves. We believe we need to work hard. And then we manufacture a life where this becomes true. But the truth is infinite possibility. You can provide for yourself simply by being who you are. That's like the divine truth. Like, you have a place on this planet. It's like who you are. You're divinely designed, and you don't have to be anything more than who and how it is you naturally are in order to, in a sense, earn your place here, be provided for. All of these gifts of food, they're provided freely by the earth. Like, that's the alignment of being one with the earth. These gifts are given freely. And then we give our gifts freely. I feel like where humanity is heading, I think humanity has a long way to go, but I think that where we're heading, eventually we won't need money, because each of us is going to be so, first of all, we're just going to be loving one another and trusting one another. And in that love for one another, we're going to naturally want to provide for each other. We're going to recognize every single other is an aspect of me. They're a part of me. That's my consciousness animating their body, animating their thoughts. It's an extension of me. And just like we've got the separate cells of our body that work together in perfect harmony, they all provide for each other. You don't have to pay a cell to do its job. It just does its job. It does its part. And it knows that its well-being and it's showing up for the body and doing its part impacts the entire body, and that its well-being is dependent upon the well-being of all. The cell knows this and it acts accordingly. And I feel like human beings are going to start behaving in this way, where we know that, first of all, the only way we can feel really fulfilled and inspired in life is by the giving of our gifts, is through our service. And it's going to happen naturally with love. And everybody is going to have their role. Like, it's not going to be like everyone is suddenly going to want to do one job, and then we're going to be like, well, we need builders, we need, gardeners, we need this and that. I feel like the divine designs us in a way where each one of us, what it is that we want to do is actually what the world needs. So there will be an appropriate amount of people who are just gifted in gardening, in farming, who are just gifted in building, and that's what they want to be doing. They enjoy it. And we have to unravel a lot of conditioning to get there. I feel like a lot of us believe that we need to do something that we really don't want to be doing, that we need to work for someone else. None of that is true. And even when we're self-employed, we can carry some of these imprints with us. But our work, our gifts, our offering to the world is never meant to deplete us. It's meant to inspire us. And there are also certain techniques that we can learn. I share them in my training around how it is that we can source energy as we are sharing our work, not from our limited well of energy as a human being, but really sourcing it and channeling it from the infinite source, from God, from spirit. So make sure that what you're offering is coming from there and not necessarily your willpower, which is limited, or your personal energy, which is limited. But we all have access to infinite energy. So practice sharing from a place where it's like coming from there. And practice recognizing when you are operating from a limiting belief and realizing, I know that something more is possible, because we are living in an experience where anything is possible. And it's limited by our own beliefs, by our own behaviors, by our own projections, by the energy that we emit around what we expect. That's what it's limited by. It's not limited by fate. And exploring different ways of sharing your gifts, because we grow and evolve. I used to do so many one-on-one readings every single day. My day was not complete without seeing clients one-on-one. And over time, what felt more aligned to me was holding group containers and specifically trainings. That's what feels the most aligned to me at this time, my training. So letting yourself grow with that, because you'll find that if you're trying to hold on to what used to inspire you and give you energy, can actually become depleting over time. Like when I first started working, I worked with a lot of people that were very logical and very much in the corporate world. And that was inspiring to me and I loved it. But now when I do a session with someone who's super logical and like very, like perhaps hasn't opened to spiritual work before, I actually find it a little bit draining now. And it's because at this time, I'm meant to be working with spiritual teachers, with people who are teaching this. So things will change, and permission to like read the energy and continuously head towards what it is that invigorates us and gives us energy. We never have to deplete ourselves. But what gives us energy will change in time. I'm reading the chat right now. Yes, Jewel. Okay, I'm just going to take one more question before we complete today, but know that we have 2 other classes together. So Deepa, I would love to hear from you.
Hello. Yeah, a little hesitant to ask it. I know a lot of people will relate, but I don't know. Sometimes you feel like you're the only one feeling it, right? So I don't even know where to start from, because basically I love to share and help, right? And it will be even challenging even sharing this, because I'm talking about my ego or identity. And I stopped like sharing a lot like 3-4 months ago while doing a spiritual class or course with, I don't know if you know, SEAL. So I was doing some courses, and then I just had this little bit of shift where I realized that I was sharing and it was taking a lot out of me, where I was just like, because I had to validate that identity, because I had fear of judgment. And because I had fear of judgment, I was sharing through an identity where, like, I'm just giving, I'm sharing. It was coming from a place of love, but yet it was coming from identity where it has to be validated. And it would like the fear of judgment and the validation need would take so much energy out of me, where I would be shifting the focus on what the realization or my journey I'm sharing, but I'll be like shifting the focus, and my energy would be in others. So I kind of stopped sharing a lot, and I would share when I feel aligned. I just would share whenever I feel like sharing and feel like, I had like a lot, and then I wanted to share from there. So now I was just like, I had some thing financially going on where, I was like, I kind of want to do things career-wise and money-wise, which I feel I want to do from my heart, not just for money's sake, to, like to earn money just for that, like, doing work for that only, rather than just fulfilling something fulfilling. But while I'm thinking that, some things come to mind, but it's not aligned. I would say aligned means probably heart, mind, and all parts of me kind of being okay with going there. It's not feeling aligned. Obviously, fear of judgment is a big one. But I just feel like sometimes there's a pressure where, people are, with the spiritual, I would say even like a group or something, or a spiritual, where there is like a pressure where you feel like, oh, everybody needs to give, and it's not the truth. I'm giving by my presence, I'm giving to myself, I'm giving to my journey, and I'm doing self-realization, which is basically giving to everybody else, everybody and me. And it's just like, I don't know where I'm going from here, but I would just like to know like what your journey has been, where, where you are wanting to feel aligned before you give, or maybe it's about receiving to give.
Oh, can you say that again? It just cut out for a moment. What was the question?
So I was just saying, like, can you like share from your journey where you feel aligned before you give, or like, because when I think about giving right now, I don't even think about giving, because before I was thinking like, oh, I want to help people, I want to give. Right now it's about sharing. And when I share, I want to be feeling aligned before I share. And it, uh, one thing that comes to mind is like, you have to receive to give. You have to receive to give in order to give. In some way, somehow, you're either giving from overflow, or so it just feels like, when I think about giving, which I like, my soul, I know, but my body, mind, like, everything here is not aligned, where if I give, I will be either focusing too much energy on getting validation, or fear of judgment, or I would be focused from my self-realization journey, and I just feel like it's like too much. So it's just like, okay, what do I do? Do I want to like create my career through this or not? And I guess all of it, I feel like whenever I'm talking about this, is alignment is what is coming up. It's like it's not aligned yet. And sorry, I'm sharing as well as this processing while I'm sharing in a way. So that's all my sharing and question in there. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Deepa.
Yeah.
Thank you for your share. Yeah, Rochelle writes, I can totally relate, Deepa. I'm going to take a moment to drop into your share. Okay, when I feel like there's a lot going on in my mind around sharing, when I don't know where the desire to share is coming from, like what's the foundation? Am I wanting validation? Am I trying to be seen? Because there's such a difference between trying to be seen and just allowing ourselves to be seen. When it feels like there's a block and it doesn't feel aligned, but then some part of me is like, oh, when that is occurring, I pray and I give it to God. When I'm like really in my mind about things, or just when I get into a state of really trying to figure something out, that for me is time to give it to Spirit. Give it to God. Like, I love you, life. I love you, Spirit. Please support me in being the greatest support I can be. Please bring into my awareness the aligned action for me. And sometimes when it comes to sharing, I share even though it doesn't feel aligned. And it's a funny thing that happens. I've learned to discern when something, well, I'm learning to discern when it doesn't feel aligned, because there's fear of judgment, fear of who knows, I mean, a million things. I think a lot of it is actually unconscious fear. And when it's just simply not time. And I've shared things where afterwards I was like, I pushed myself to share that really wasn't meant to be shared. It wasn't fully integrated. And at other times, like for example, the sharing of this masterclass, it didn't feel aligned, but I pushed myself to share it anyway. And I realized that the reason was because there was a fear. So permission to play around with, in a sense, doing it anyway, so that you can learn, giving yourself permission to make mistakes. Like I've shared on Instagram and then just deleted it afterwards. Like, oh, this wasn't integrated. or I've said things that weren't integrated. That's okay. We're human. And we don't have to be these perfect spiritual teachers, like only spewing divine wisdom. Sometimes like allow ourselves to say things that aren't perfect, where, you know, when you listen to it a few months later, you're like, what? That's not even true. Like, I can't believe I gave out that information. Sorry, guys. But it's okay. It can't all be winners. And we're all, you know, simultaneously sharing our wisdom and working through our own process. And that's always going to be the case, always. We never evolve out of that because we are a continuous evolution. Our shares and our giving, our shares are gonna come out differently when we're seeking validation. When we're wanting something, it's going to come out differently, and then it's not going to be satisfying unless we receive it, the thing that we're wanting. So we may find if we don't get the validation, then suddenly it doesn't feel good. But there's a way in which we can align to simply what is authentic and true and real to us and share that for the sake of sharing. I'm giving this because it's my expression. It's like me being me. And there's no greater fulfillment and excitement and inspiration in this life than me being me and sharing me and allowing myself to be seen and becoming more of me through the sharing of me. There's something inherently satisfying about that. So in time, we begin sharing from that place. And then we're not dependent upon how other people perceive us in order to feel good about our shares. And then we can be judged in our shares, we can be misunderstood, we can be projected onto, and that's okay because the point wasn't to be liked or understood by you. It wasn't to be validated by you. I know how to validate myself. I understand that what I'm sharing, say I'm sharing spiritual wisdom, it's all merely one perspective. And I understand that from another perspective, that perspective may be inaccurate or incorrect, and that's okay. And that when people judge me because I have other perspectives, that's okay. And when people fight me or diminish me, my perspectives, there's a validity even to that. And I wasn't sharing to be right. I wasn't sharing to gain your approval. I wasn't sharing to be famous, to be liked. I was sharing to be and experience and express more of me. And that's it. And then the validation and the love and the inspiration and the fulfillment becomes self-sourced. And in many ways, this is the only, safe way to share. Just because we don't know how our gifts will be received, especially when we're sharing spiritual gifts, they can bring things up for people. We're not going to resonate with everybody. Yeah. Rochelle says, when a person I really look up to can show their humanness and be messy, it makes me love and appreciate them more. Yes, I so feel that. I really feel that as well. And yeah, it often feels aligned to me to speak to my human and my messy. And I feel like it helps me really trust people when I see that humanness, because everybody has that aspect to them. We cannot transcend our humanness while we're human. Deepa, do you feel like that answers your question? Is there any more to it? Anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah, while you were saying integrated, I guess I didn't understand well, but when you were talking about it's just one perspective, and I'm not sharing to be right, yet I'm sharing it with the fear of judgment. You have to share with an ego identity because you want to protect your identity. And I was just getting hints of wisdom or a realization in a way where there are parts of me which is not integrated in that way, where I'm not thinking it that as my perspective and their perspective is either right and wrong. So it is creating the ego, the identity wants to be validated, right? Otherwise, there's no other way to be validated otherwise, I guess. And then identity itself is created by what other people think. And yet needs to be validated by what other people think. And so yeah, there was like things that came up where I'm like, okay, the identity is created by the fact that what other people think, and yet that's why it wants to be validated. And that was something that came up. And yeah, so thank you. It's difficult to work with, identity and ego stuff. Being humble in that case, it's hard. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing with us your process. Thank you, Deepa, and for allowing yourself to be seen right now and sharing.
Yeah, and one part, like you were saying, if it's not integrated or not, what does that mean? Like if it was not integrated before you share it?
Like sometimes I feel, in my personal experience of sharing, I may receive a download or learn something, and I want to share it, but sometimes I need time to really live that wisdom, where it has become an integrated part of my everyday consciousness before I'm able to share it. Like I feel like I wanted to share trainings on how to access Akashic perspective far before I had really integrated all of the wisdom. And then once I actually began sharing, which to me felt like, wow, that took so long. But when my students' questions came up, I realized, oh, like I needed to have so much experience and really live the experience of being an Akashic practitioner, of holding space in this way from so many different perspectives with so many different walks of life before I could actually share. Like certain things needed to really be integrated. Or like, yeah, it's like we want to teach certain things because it's like, oh, I know a thing, I want to teach it, I want to share it. But are you really living it? Day in and day out, are you living it? Because if you just kind of started living it, maybe it's not fully integrated. So sometimes we need the time to like fully integrate it, because I find the most potent transmissions are when they are coming from what people have integrated. So we can play mind games all we want, where you're receiving from a teacher and you're receiving their mind, like their mental wisdom, yet that only reaches our mind. When someone is speaking from a very embodied place where they are living in this way, they are living the wisdom that they're sharing, that is their life, I feel like it's transmittable in a way that it becomes more easily digestible and integratable for us. It's like we really transmit it at a level that is far beyond just the mental sharing and understanding.
Yeah. Yet while we channel wisdom, it's really for us too, right? So we are not integrated that way. So whenever we are channeling, and I do that sometimes when I share, I'm channeling wisdom because I have a challenge that I need to process, and I'm channeling at the same time and processing, or I am doing it for myself basically, and I'm sharing as I am doing it for myself. And we are not going to be integrated while doing that. And that would be a different kind of share, I guess, which.
Yeah, it's like different to share in that way than it is to like hold a course on a thing.
Right.
So yeah, absolutely. And it's very true. Whatever comes through us, I feel is for us.
Thank you very much.
Deepa.
Thank you.
Just reading your chat. I love your chats. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, and Stephanie, I do see your question. Perhaps we can dive into it in a future class. So I love you guys so much, and I'm so grateful to all of you who have been here. I would love to receive your feedback. What was this like for you? How was it supportive to you? How could it be better? You're welcome to email me. And yeah, please join us for the next 2 classes. They're going to be building upon themselves. And know that this offering is a gift to you. Donations are never expected, but always appreciated. So if you feel called to share, I think my PayPal and my Venmo was sent to you. And I really, really appreciate your shares. Thank you. And I would also love to suggest, if it feels aligned to you, if you would love to share this opportunity with a friend or two who may want to either sign up for the replay or join us for the next 2 classes. Anybody you know who may be wanting to step into the sharing of their spiritual gifts. Yeah, yay, Rochelle. Happy you're here. And thank you, Jess. Thank you, everybody. Oh, I love that. Like, my whole Akashic class is here. It's amazing. I love you guys so much. Thank you. Yeah, and all you new faces, so nice to meet you. Like, welcome to this community. I'm really happy that you're here. Yeah, I love you all. Have an amazing Sunday, and I hope to have you with us next week.
Ahui ho.